Here we are at St Boltoph's Priory, the first Augustinian monastery in the country. Established in the 11th century, it was built at the site of an earlier Anglo-Saxon church and was dedicated to Boltoph of Thorney, an abbot who died in 680 AD and who is now considered the patron saint of trade and travel. His feast day is celebrated on the 17th of June, and there are many other English churches dedicated to him. It took 61 years to complete the priory's construction, although its wealth was increased substantially when it was granted land by both Henry I and Richard I. Its front side at the west is one of the best surviving examples from this period. Its towers at the north and south were unusually placed beyond the aisles of the nave, their mouldings and ornaments made from good quality limestone. Between the towers we can still see 2 rows of Roman brick arches, and part of a large circular window at the top of the middle tier still remains, complete with its chevron adornments. The church was built from flint rubble, with arches made of brick from previous Roman buildings. Although it is a quite simple design, the large piers and the nave's arches remain very impressive even today. The masonry would probably have been covered in plaster and painted in a manner to resemble ashlar blocks. Following the dissolution of the monasteries between 1536 and 1541, it was used as a venue for civic occasions until the English Civil War, when, in 1650, it was almost completely destroyed by cannon fire. Consequently, its members moved to All Saints' Church, where these parishioners continued attending until 1837, when the current St Boltoph's was built. In 1943, it was almost destroyed again by fire following Second World War air raids, its own team of fire watchers dealing with a number of incendiary bombs. There are several grave sites in the surroundings, as well as a cemetery at the north of the priory, which may have been used by the parish at the time of its foundation and did remain in use even after the priory's dissolution and the building of the new church. Close to the priory's entrance is a fine stone monument dedicated to those who lost their lives during the First and Second World Wars. The nave of the priory, which is now in ruins, contains some elaborate memorials from the 19th century, and the graveyard also holds gravestones from the Victorian period. One notable person buried here is Captain Jesse Jones, who died in 1868 after serving in the 1st Regiment of Foot Guards, now known as the Grenadier Guards, and fighting at the Battle of Waterloo in 1815. There are also vaults in the grounds, including that of William Hawkins, who was an important member of the Colchester Conservative Party and who played a significant role in the development of the railway and the water supply to the town. Also, here we can see the vault of Dr. Roger Nunn, a prominent surgeon and mayor of the town in 1834. He later contributed to the building of St Boltoph's new church. As we continued on our way through Colchester, we stopped at the Holy Trinity Church, which is the only remaining Saxon building still standing in the town. As was typical of the Saxon style, it has a triangular arch across the door at the west of the tower. The tower dates to the middle of the 11th century and, similar to other buildings we have seen, made use of Roman bricks when it was constructed. It has a number of graves within its churchyard, including that of Queen Elizabeth I's doctor, William Gilbert. Also at rest here is John Wilby, a composer of madrigals, which were short lyrical poems. He moved to Colchester to become a music tutor. When St Boltoph's welcomed its parishioners back, the church at All Saints saw a significant decline in its attendance, which only dwindled further as more and more people moved away from living in the city centre. It was declared a redundant church in 1956, but just 2 years later, the Natural History Museum opened in the building. This meant that not only was the building preserved, but also the graveyard, which has now become a very calm and pleasant nature garden, where you can enjoy a walk amongst the large trees, wild grasses and other vegetation. The church was built in the 12th century, although there is no definitive record of exactly when. The oldest parts, including the chancel and nave, are certainly from the Norman period, while its north aisle and flint-built tower are from the 15th century. Its windows are examples of Gothic architecture and can therefore be dated to a time between the 14th and 16th centuries. It is situated opposite Colchester Castle and, particularly during the 18th century, it was a popular location for people from surrounding towns and villages like Fearing and Fingringhoe to get married. Within the grounds you can find the final resting places of former residents like Mary Ann Smith, who was the daughter of Colchester Castle's last jailer, and the celebrated clockmaker Nathaniel Hodge, some of whose work can be seen in the Holly Trees Museum in the Castle Park. There are several other gravestones within the grounds, and here we see one that features a draped urn, something that was quite common during Victorian times. The urn itself is a symbol of those used to carry the remains of the dead, and the fabric is added to represent the veil between the living and the dead, and the thin boundary between them. Inside the museum, the focus is on the wildlife and geology of the North East Essex area. It has animal specimens on display and holds around 700 preserved skins, many of which were arranged onto models of the original bodies. It features some large and wonderful taxidermy dioramas of local wildlife and its habitats, as well as lots of information about biodiversity, geology, climate change and the world of nature beneath the North Sea. Some of its other displays include fossils and skulls of mammoths, crocodiles and hippos. The museum also holds over 40,000 insect specimens, including impressive collections of butterflies and beetles. There is also a full-size set of replica megalodon jaws hanging from the ceiling, so big that a person could crouch inside. Visitors can also find rocks and minerals dating back 50 million years, and there are also some fabulous giant insect sculptures on the wall. Another interactive item is a telephone that plays pre-recorded audio describing the earthquake that struck Colchester in April 1884. The earthquake caused a significant level of damage in the town and surrounding villages. It measured 4.6 on the Richter scale, and its effects were felt not only across England but also as far afield as northern France and Belgium. Over 1,200 buildings were damaged in the immediate area, but it also affected settlements in Ipswich. The overall cost of the disaster was estimated at £10,000, which, if adjusted to today's money, would equate to over £1 million. It really is an interesting museum, packed with fascinating objects and a great number of other items to explore and experience, situated in a lovely building beside its charming nature walk.